Okay, so in the last video, we finished the passing frame, so now we should have all the contacts and the passing, and pretty much almost halfway done with our walk, which is really cool. So I'm going to go back, and now we're going to work on this recoil pose. So in between the first contact and the first passing, I'm going to make a shift, holding down shift and click. So my whole selection is on the recoil. Using the hotkey F6, I have now made a new keyframe for the recoil. And if let's zoom in here and examine this pose. In this pose, this is where from the contact and switching over from all the weight being on the right foot, now switching over to all the weight in the walk going to the left foot. This is the recoil, or this is where the weight is distributed into the next step. So what we want to do here is actually put the weight here in this foot and even squash Sally down a little bit so she looks as if she has weight. So I'm going to put on onion skinning and just work in between the first contact and the first passing now. So with all of it selected, just sort of, exactly like I did in the passing keyframe, with the free transform tool, I'm going to drag that pivot down into her heel and bring that forward, lining it up as best as I can to the ghost of her left foot in the passing keyframe. Now I'm going to shift click the left foot, so now everything is selected but the foot, and I'm going to drag that down onto her ankle again, and this time I'm going to rock it forward quite a bit. It's okay to exaggerate. That's what animation is all about, is creating this very exaggerated look. It's what makes it more believable. So again, I'm going to shift click the lower left leg. So now everything is selected but the lower left leg and the left foot. And now I'm going to rock it back after placing the pivot point on the knee. I might have to do a little bit of adjusting with the arrows to get it just right. But I'm going to rock it back as much as I feel comfortable doing. And at this point, the weight should be evenly distributed because it's just now leaving the right leg, so it should be transferring. It shouldn't be all the way over like in the passing. It should be transferring. So to do that, let's get rid of the onion skin for a moment, and I'm going to shift click the right leg, the upper part. So now everything is selected but, and drag that pivot over into the center. And it's not completely in the middle, but it's close, so I'm just going to move it over slightly and maybe keeping her down a little bit. I want to turn the onion skin back on, and at this point the leg is starting to move over, and we can see slightly from where it was to where it is. We want to be in the middle of that. So with just the right leg selected, going to drag that pivot over to the top, and we're going to start bringing it over. So I can see this ghost of the right leg, and I want to make a clean arc. And since this is kind of convoluted to see all the shapes, what I can do is make a lot of the ones that I'm not working with invisible. Actually, I can make all of it invisible, so I'm just working with this. And, so I want this arc to be somewhat smooth. So with all of it selected, I'm going to use the arrow keys and just adjust it a little bit, and maybe bring it to the right a little bit more. Trying to get it right in the center. And I'm going to shift click the upper part of the leg, so now it's just the lower and the right foot selected, and bring that pivot point over into the knee, and now just select that foot, and I might take some clicks with your arrow to get it just right. So now we should have this, her anatomy is not ideal really, now that I look at this, it's not ideal for this walk cycle, but we're going to make it work. So this is the recoil. So now I can, take off the onion skin, because I have made sure that that the right leg is in line and that the left foot hasn't moved, and now I can go and adjust these arms. So now in the recoil, I'm actually going to, it looks like this arm stays in the same place, so it looks like we're okay. We're going to just leave him in the same place. They haven't started to come down in the passing yet, or if they did, maybe we can adjust them slightly. Let's play with them. If it doesn't work, we can always change it later. So now they're actually going to start coming back, so just rock it back just slightly, and put the upper and mid torso on wireframe, select the left arm and left arm hand, and do the same thing there. Just going to start just ever so much. Now the next thing I want to check out with onion skin is to see how this torso looks, or this part of the body. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but in this pose that we just created, that I have just created, I can see that her head is leaning forward a little bit. And I definitely want to keep it up and down and pretty stationary. All this requires is me to rock it back a little bit. But the arms are good and the legs are good. Well, at least I know the legs need to stay where they are. The arms are connected to the body, so they will probably lean back with it. So I'm going to make a selection of everything but the legs. So using Command on a Mac or Control on a PC, I'm going to hold down Command or Control and make those selections. Everything but the legs. And actually take it off of the wireframe and put that in the most logical place, I think, right in the waist area. I'll lean her back a little bit, and that looks a little bit better. And now what I can do is actually drag this pivot point down to the center and just give it a slight amount of squash. And before I do that, I'm actually going to Control Z back out of that squash I just made and select the whole body and drag that pivot down to her foot and give the whole body just the slightest amount of squash. And let's take it off onion skin and let's see what it looks like. That looks like there's some weight in there now. Some pop to her step. And the next one, in this high high point that we're going to create, she is actually going to be the highest point of the walk. So let's do that now. So going to the high point. So my scrubber moved over to the H on the guide layer that I made. And I'm going to shift select all of those frames and using the hotkey F6 create a new keyframe. And in this one I'm going to turn on my onion skinning from the passing to the next contact. The contact where we switch from the left leg to the right leg. Okay, so in this one, this is the high point. This is where we leap up off of the passing to take the step just before contact. So this leg stays where it's at, but it actually elongates. So the best way to look at this would be, well, let's take it off onion skin for a little bit and put everything on wireframe except for this back leg. And maybe the tail, because it's not really in the way of what we see. And really neither is the head. Okay, so with everything selected but the lower you know what? This is going to be a tricky one, but you have to turn onion skin back on, and forgive me for not being extremely clear on this, but I'm going to have everything selected, and I'm going to bring the pivot point onto the toe and lean her forward just like so, and now make a holding down shift. I'm going to click the foot, so now everything is selected except for the foot, and bring that onto the ankle and rock it back a little bit. So I'm elongating the leg essentially. Now I'm going to do the same thing, shift select the lower foot, so everything is selected but the lower leg, lower left leg and the left foot, and rock it forward. So this leg is essentially very elongated, and you know, with all this convoluted lines and shapes, I don't think I can just deselect this in the whole body, so I'm going to go back and take it off wireframe for a little bit, take it off onion skinning. I'm gonna have to toggle back and forth, so now I'm going to straighten it up, and as we can see in this guide image, the weight now is centrally distributed. This is the graceful fall of the walk, you know, so all of the weight is about to be transported onto the right foot. So it is centralized and is not stably balanced in this portion of the walk. So I'm going to select everything but the left leg. I'm even going to select the tail by holding down Command or Control, and I'm also going to have to turn that mid-torso into wireframe as well as the right leg. And now I'm going to drag this pivot point for all the body parts except for the left leg entirely, and put it on the hip and lean it back. And might have to turn on keyframing just for a little bit and jut this portion of the body forward. So holding shift, I'm just going to bring it forward ever so much, so it's now going to fall into the contact, and lift it up a little bit more. How about a couple clicks? 3 clicks, 4 clicks with the arrow key. Alright, so take it out of the wireframe, and now in this one, this is the highest point of this leg's, the right leg, and it's about to make its steps. So with just the right leg selected, all of it, bring it forward as if it's about to make that connection, and maybe even click it forward with the arrow key to the right 2 or 3 times, whatever looks good. And we can actually put on the onion skin and make all invisible but the right leg, so we can see where we're coming from, and now we can get that arc just right so things look believable. And this is the arc that I'm talking about from this pivot point. And now let's focus on that knee. Oh, I didn't change the pivot point to the right place, so now let's focus on that knee. So now that pivot point is in a nice arc, this knee we want it to be in the nice arc, and now let's focus on this ankle to be in a nice arc. So I'm just going to select the lower and foot of the right leg, drag that onto the knee, now I'm just going to grab the foot, just the foot, okay, that's a pretty believable arc. And at the high point, this is where the arm is coming back even more. So I'm going to take off the onion skin, and with the right arm selected, bring that back a little bit, and this is about the highest point for the left arm, the balance. So with the mid and upper torso and wireframe, I'm going to select the left arm and left hand, bring that out, doing my best to mimic this pose. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of it, and like we did with the contact or the recoil where we squashed Sally down, now I'm going to drag this pivot of the whole character down to the toe and stretch it just a little bit up. So now she'll have a really, exaggerated walk. So let's click wireframe twice, and we can go back and see how it looks. That's pretty good. That's got a lot of bounce to that walk. And that foot doesn't float. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. Alright. In the next video, we will finish it up by creating the recoil and the high point for the left leg, and maybe get into some fine tuning.